Sorry to get into all of that before my talk on wxPerl, but wxPerl is also one of those things that, and I'll get into my wxPerl talk now. Maybe we can cut that first part out and include it as a separate video. But
Probably.
but wxPerl is I wish I would have brought the book, but I have the original. Well, not like it's a rare book, but I have a hard copy of the wxPerl book created by Julian Smart. Julian Smart is a computer scientist in England, I think, and now he's a fiction writer, and who wrote wxPerl as part of a when he was in graduate school or doing some postdoc research. In I think it was an artificial intelligence lab in England, and attached to one of the universities. And he created. They needed to do UI stuff, graphical user interface stuff, and at the time, there really wasn't a whole lot of cross-platform options. Although when he was doing it, he had the foresight to want to create something that would work on multiple platforms. And he's an expert C++ programmer, and so he came up with the original version of wxWidgets. And wxWidgets is it's meant to be like to sit on top of the GUI toolkits that we're familiar with, like on Windows. And I'm not a GUI cross-platform or GUI expert, but I've picked up some terms. You know, there's GTK. There's GTK on like Linux and Unix platforms. There's I forget what the Mac OS one is. Maybe Cocoa or I don't know, I forget. But there's several on Apple on the Mac platforms, and then on Windows there's the is it Microsoft Foundation classes MFC, or there's the Win32, which is actually very well supported in Perl, the Win32 GUI toolkit, or at least library. But in any case, the idea was to create a general set of a superset, if you will, of C++ objects that one could build their GUI application out of, and depending on the compiler flags and to determine which backend GUI library was used to use in the compilation process, it would be suitable for Windows, for Mac, or for Linux. And so he accomplished his goal. wxWidgets. Let's see, wxWidgets. It's still alive and well. It's up to version 3.3.0, and it's supported its goal for many years now. And so there's the wxPerl is an old project that has not worked well. I don't want to say it hasn't worked for a while. It hasn't received much love in a long time. And there's a dev2, John V. Roman. John V. Roman is probably a well-known name to some of you. Let's see, wxWidgets. He wrote an article, and he's a longtime user. I should have pulled this up. Oh wait, I should have pulled this up before. Anyway, not too long ago, he wrote an article. It was probably about a year ago. He wrote an article on Dev2 about revitalizing the wxPerl project. And it's a project that had languished for a long time. And the problem was that you couldn't compile. It's awkward to compile wxPerl. And I'll pull up the meta cpan. Oops. That came up anyway. Good. Okay, so wx is it's the wrapper that was written many years ago, and I wish I could recall the gentleman's name, but he wrote it many years ago as a way to interface the underlying C++ library that enabled wx programs to be written in Perl, and it worked well. The problem is that as the versions of Perl uh, increased, nobody really updated the bindings or the really what underneath it all was the process. I think there's an alien WX um, alien wxWidgets. This is essentially how the I mean, a lot of y'all know how the alien what the alien namespace is for, but this essentially was uh, set up to facilitate the bindings of the wxWidgets Perl module interface to the underlying library, and it does the detection of where the libraries are, and it does it provides the flags that the compiler and the linker need, and all of that stuff. Well, this this didn't keep up with the version of Perl or the version of WX, and so probably about 9 months ago, maybe more, John the Roman, after some encouraging from me and maybe a couple other people, generously took his time to get a version of Perl, particularly on Windows. It was Strawberry Perl 5.40, to build with the, I don't know if it's the latest version WX widgets, but it is certainly a modern version. Let's see, WX Perl John D. Roman. Uh, Let me see something. wxBlade is the. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I wanted to find the. Oh, I don't know why I'm doing this. Okay, let me do this. So I gave you a little bit of history that I think is sufficient. But let me go to this page, which is really a page, pearlguilds.net, which is a page I started really to keep my notes about things, and in particular my notes about WX, building WX Perl. And so let me jump. Let me just do a sidebar here. So I created this page because I like the way that Free Pascal. The Free Pascal community has this. What is going on here? Make sure I'm not a bot, huh? What am I supposed to do here? Okay, well that's frustrating. Okay, this is the site. So you can see I kind of cribbed it almost directly off of this Free Pascal wiki. But basically, Free Pascal community is a community of people who use Pascal, and they use the rapid application development interface called Lazarus, which is cross-platform, written in Pascal. And it's a small community. They just want to work on their Pascal programs, and they want to have good tools and libraries and support. And of course, it's a smaller community. It's an older community. It's a dwindling community. But that's their tool. That's how they express their creativity is through Pascal. And in a lot of ways, it reminded me of us. There's a lot of similarities. In fact, I've tried to use Pascal and Lazarus before, and I really love it for building the GUI. But then when I want to actually do stuff with it, Pascal is just, after having, everybody knows that after having worked with Perl, and being quick and nimble with it, Pascal could be very like awkward and slow to work with. So, dealing with text and data structures and web calls and JSON and all the modules. And so, I really, if Pascal was easy to work with, I probably would have honestly switched over to it for a lot of like at least Windows based stuff. But it's not. I cannot work with the code itself for very long without getting frustrated. So don't worry, Will. I'm not leaving you for Pascal.
Okay, I'll back down from the edge of the cliff here.
So anyway, so jumping back over to Perl guilds, you can see I even borrowed some of the widgets, but I extended it. And so the goal for the Perl guides is just to have something here that people who independent people really like myself, like Will, like other people who, you are trying to forge that on your own and, simultaneously make a living, put food on your table, a roof over your kid's head, and also continue to learn to master Perl and extend your skills. It's kind of a site for people like that. And the most developed part of the site is the GUIs with Perl. And really this reflects the fact that my main motivation for content was to take notes for my the experience I've had so far developing wxPerl applications on Windows. Okay, and so that part is the one that is the most well developed, and I'm going to basically go over it here after that very long introduction. So what I have here, and the reason why I remembered to jump over here is I was talking about John V. Roman's call for a revival for wxPerl. And that's why, let's see, I've got the link here. Let me pull it up. Okay. John V. Romans has been in the Perl community for a very long time. I've communicated with him many times actually over this. And he goes as far back as I believe he contributed the little pocket guide for Perl. Little
O'Reilly.
I think he wrote that, or at least
I recognize his name,
or at least created the first version of it. And he was involved in Perl documentation from the very beginning. And so he's a very familiar person in Perl. Anyway, he's got a bunch of modules. I think he did GetOps long, perhaps, or at least had something to do with that. Anyway, very humble and very smart person. Anyway, he wrote this. What's the date? October 12th, 2024. So not quite a year ago, and he was making a call for a revival, and I saw it actually. Zaki Mogul pointed this out to me, and he said he was excited about it, and I saw it, and I was excited about it because for a while there we had been trying to get wxPerl to compile on Windows. I'm going to the archive of the mailing list. We had been trying to get it to compile on Windows, and we were successful, in particular due to Zaki's efforts. Because what he did was, but we were successful, but it was very kludgy. Okay, we were successful, however, because Zaki's a brilliant guy, and he noted that the Debian package for wxPerl on works. You can install, like, so if you have Ubuntu or Debian or some Debian based version, you can get on there and through their apps repo, install wxPerl, and it'll install and build, and you're good to go. You can just start developing. And so he found their patches, and then he worked out the build process if you were on Windows. And in fact, on the Houston Perlmongers website, YouTube page, we have a video where I go. It's like a 2-hour video where a bunch of us are kind of going through the process, and we're able to demonstrate that it works. And so, but the problem was, like, you could create a native looking wxPerl window in Windows. And I guess I'm glossing over the Linux side because it's actually quite trivial to get wxPerl going, particularly on an Ubuntu system, because you can just install it through the app system. But on Windows, it's not so trivial. And so, but it's before John got back involved. It was you could come up with an environment where you could develop the code, and you could develop a GUI, and you could run it from like MSys 2, which is like a it's that a set of it's a layer between Linux type syscalls mapped to the underlying Windows syscalls as closely as possible. Okay, it's not it's a lot more refined of an integration than say Sigma. And so a lot of people will use like Strawberry Perl uses MSys, the Ming, is it Ming 64 compiler, which is the MSys2 version of GCC to compile Strawberry Perl for Windows, and then they create the it's a distributable native Windows binary at that point, and that's how they distribute Strawberry Perl. Of course, it's a much more complicated process, and another hat tip to those guys because what they do is I think vitally important. The Strawberry Perl project is really awesome, and they do a lot of good work for the Perl community. But in any case, the process that that Zachy was able to figure out was not.
Question.
Yes.
Mr. Muffapati asked, does wxPerl work on you?
It does, but that's a whole other can of worms. My efforts over the last, I guess, 2 years now have been specifically for Windows. But yes, it should work on Mac. And the only reason I believe it would not work on Mac is because it needs to be, somebody needs to adopt it. Like I think I've adopted wxPerl on Windows, at least to bug the right people to get it to work. But there needs to be an advocate for wxPerl on Mac in order to get it to par. But the promise, the like wxWidgets absolutely works on Mac. Okay, it absolutely works on Mac. They keep it up to date. Does how does the Perl wx module deal with wxWidgets, or really moreover, it's the alien wxWidgets module that does the building and the linking. That's probably woefully out of date, and it really just needs an advocate. And what an advocate does, I consider myself an advocate in this case. And really what I did was, ask, try to find somebody who could help me. Just say, hey, I can't do this on my own. I need help. And thankfully, between John wanting to do the revival with wxPerl and him being a super nice guy, he was able to spend a few hours one night to get it working for Windows. And I'll be showing you the actual details here shortly. But we need somebody like that for Mac. And so I would encourage you, sir, if you were interested in having this on Mac, I think it would be greatly beneficial for a lot of people, because but I would encourage you to, and I would be happy to work with you to find the right person, for, where you your first, who you can contact to see if they can help you, or you. I mean, I'm presuming that you can't do it. You may be able to do it.
Alternatively, we do have a nonprofit organization in which you can donate money, and we can hire a Perl programmer to do that, if that's something that is really critically important.
I would defer. Yeah, I would defer that to Will the Chill here. But yes, I mean, we could do that too. But what would happen? What would have to happen there is basically we would just have to become the advocates for that, and so that would be an option too. In any case, we need an advocate for the Mac, wxPerl on the Mac platform, and I think that's the case for like anything that you want to work on any platform. You need an advocate, and because we have such a small community right now, we're lacking in advocates. And so, yes, please become an advocate for that. Please contact me outside of this, or maybe I'll get your contact information from Will and reach out. I would love to assist somebody to be an advocate for Mac or for wxPerl on Mac, and or support you, encourage you, and all those sorts of things if that's something that you want to do. So yes, it's supposed to work on Mac, and I'm almost 100% sure it does not currently work on Mac. So, okay.
And Mr. Mokapati said, thank you for your answer, and that he's going to play with it on his Mac.
I would love, and I would be more than happy to, reproduce your results and then be able to record it here for others.
So let's hook up with us on Facebook, because we're all on Facebook and we can coordinate with that.
Yeah, we're on Facebook. That sounds good. Okay. I forgot where I was. I was talking about the revival. So this is John's email where he talks about wanting to get it started again. He notes in this is last year, that the latest release is based on Perl 5.16 and wxWidgets 2.9. Now, fast forward to what the state of the art now is that he was able to get together instructions and updates that allow us to build now using Strawberry Perl. We can now build, where is it? wxWidgets. Oh, it's wxWidgets 3.005. Am I reading that right? Let me jump over to his page. Okay. Now, this is his GitHub page. If you go to wxPerl 3.005. Okay. And so this is the latest release that he had, and it was done. Last release was on December 31st. And so basically what I have on this page here, the Perl Guilds page, is instructions, very clear instructions on how to install wxWidgets that he's providing through his work. It is, wait a minute. I'm looking for which version of wxWidgets it is. I think it's in 3s, but he may be using 2, the latest 2 dot whatever. It doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. I mean, there are some improvements between 2 and 3, but I'm happy with anything working. Okay, so let me go over these installation steps. But the point is, John V. Romans did a lot of work late last year and got us to the point where we can install wxWidgets on Windows. We can use wxGlade, which is a Python-based IDE, but the only one available that will allow us. It's a GUI builder, and it emits Perl code. That means it'll write a Perl code that creates the wx GUI that is cross-platform, the code that it generates, and it is actively maintained, and the developer is very easy and nice to work with. And then I've worked out the steps that you can use to create a .exe that you can then bundle, or that you can then send to people, or distribute rather, that you can send and not have to include in your instructions. Install Perl, Strawberry Perl, install MSys, and here run all through all these steps on this page, and then you can run my application. No, my goal has always been to have a distributable .exe. I can have somebody download, and they don't have to install Perl. They don't even have to know it's running Perl. But it is because, and that's important to us because that's how we do our work, and we're efficient. That's our superpower, and it can be a secret for all I care. But as long as we're able to distribute these GUI applications, and in my case, particularly on Windows. And then what I haven't gotten down yet is creating like an installation experience, but that's kind of like the next step. By this time next year, I hope to be giving a similar talk on, okay, now I've connected the final piece, which is here's how you create an exe, a Windows exe, and then here's how you install it. Here's the MSI, or here's the, whatever thing you can download, double click, and it'll ask you where you want to install it, and other details. So that's the goal for next year. But right now I am able to create just the exe. But the steps here, I do have a section on why Perl GUIs and why on Windows. well, it's obvious why we want to use Perl, and we can use all the parts of Perl that Strawberry Perl supports, okay, including making web calls and SSL and all of that. But the why Windows part is because the whole point of this is so that we can create programs that we can either sell and distribute like professionals, or free clients to web services, or either web services we've created that we charge people a fee for, or other web services that somehow we're affiliated with, that either we can give things out out of our own good free will, but if we can't, you can't just be always doing stuff for free. If we want to live this life and have a work-life balance and support Perl and have a family and be happy in our lives and fulfilled, we're going to have to make an honest living. And that's kind of the point is of the whole site really, is carving out ways in Perl or we can use our Perl skills among others to create an honest living. Nobody's going to become Bill Gates because of this. And I don't want to be Bill Gates. But I do want to be able to spend time with my kids and, pay for dinner and, that sort of thing. So that's kind of, and not have to go to the office every day. That's kind of the whole point of all this, is to and also facilitate good, honest, like, resources for people. But yeah, you don't have to charge for everything you do, but Windows, if you want to do stuff that you charge people money for, even a modest sum, it really needs to be on Windows. And I think that's kind of been established for a very long time. It's okay to charge money for your efforts. And Windows users in particular are very used to paying money for things. And that doesn't mean that they're suckers. It means that they understand value. And if you provide value to them, they will happily give you whatever it is worth to them. So that's what I'm trying to give here, and that's what we're going to end up at least making some progress on today. So step one, to get this environment set up, install Strawberry Perl. In this case, I don't know if the latest is 5.40.0.1, but that's the one I'm using. And until I'm able to update or provably update that, the newer versions of things work together, this is going to be the recommended setup. Okay. So I'm not necessarily looking at this as, oh, we got a new version of Perl, we got a new version of Strawberry Perl, we need to update this documentation. This all needs to get updated simultaneously. So what that means is, if you want to set up wxPerl on Windows for this environment that we're discussing, you install Strawberry Perl 5.40.0.1, even if there's a later version. And I haven't, if somebody hasn't updated this, you come here and install what it says to install, because otherwise I can't guarantee that it's going to work. So Strawberry Perl. Now, what I have here is a really cool thing about Strawberry Perl is there is a special Strawberry Perl bundle that comes with PDL already installed, because it is difficult for somebody, even if you just have pure Strawberry Perl, to build PDL. PDL is important for my work because I do some things with scientific data, and it allows me to natively read some data file format I need, which is netcdf, on Windows. Okay, and that has something to do with some web services that I'm building out with the hurricane storm forecasting and oceanography work that I do. But by and large, meteorology and oceanography, they use netcdf, and so PDL has the best support for reading netcdf files in all of Perl, and unsurprisingly, because it's used by scientists, and netcdf is also used in other domains. So in any case, it's significant and important to me that Strawberry Perl is distributed, one of their versions is with PDL. So if you don't need it, PDL stuff, you can just use the other Strawberry Perl. But because it does add, I don't know how much larger the installation is, but it does add a significant portion to it. But just be aware that it's there, because PDL does provide some cool stuff. Okay, so step one is going to be install Strawberry Perl, either the one with or without PDL. The next step is going to be to install alien wxWidgets. And so there's a process here. So you go to the start menu. This is on Windows. You go to the start menu. You open up a Strawberry Perl window, the command dialog, okay, or the command window where you type in like DOS commands, and then you open that up, and then you want to type in this or somehow get in there and hit enter this command. So when you open up the Strawberry Perl command window, you can do this in PowerShell too, but I've just got the regular instructions. cpan minus is already available, and you just point it towards the alien wxWidgets module or tarball, and cpan minus will unpack it and then just run it, and it'll just build. Now it takes a long time, but it's more than worth it, the time spent waiting. And if you're like me, you just like stuff compiling. I guess that's why I always liked FreeBSD. I just like to watch things compile. But anyway, it'll do that. It'll sit there and compile, and you might see a couple of warnings. Unless the compilation just stops cold, it's fine. So anyway, this is one of the things that John did, got working under Strawberry Perl 5.40.0.1. And yeah, so you do that. Now this sets up the basis that wxPerl will then need to build and find the wx widgets. Actually, I'm looking at, let me remind myself here. So we're installing alien wxWidgets. That installs the basis for which wx needs to build. Okay, so then once that's done, step 3 is you build wx, the bindings for, well, I think it builds wx, the library, and also the bindings. But anyway, you do the same thing. It's step 3 here is just cpan minus, and then the link to his the tarball. Now, again, these are all version specific. If you want to be a cowboy and try different versions, if he releases other versions, that's fine. Let me know if it works. But he's also, I believe, not actively updating these things. You know, we made a jump from Perl 5.16 to 5.40 on Windows, which is a tremendous leap. I mean, honestly, Perl 5.42 was just released yesterday or the day before. If we don't get a new one of these until Perl, 5.64 or something, I think I'd be okay with that, because unless something phenomenal was not available. But to be honest with you, I was okay with Perl 5.16. I just needed a way to create a distributable executable. But John went above and beyond and created a way for us to have access to using like at the time it was the latest version of Perl that was available on Strawberry Perl. So maybe when Strawberry Perl comes out with its next update, and those guys they're not in lockstep with the upstream Perl development and release cycle. But when they're able to get, and they don't charge money for their things. I mean, they accept donations, but a lot of us do a lot of these things just out of love for Perl. But that also means we do them on our own time. And so the Strawberry Perl guys will update, provide a latest version of Perl at some point. When they do, I'm sure I'll notice eventually, and then I'll see if either I can test to make sure it works with John's stuff works with the latest version of Strawberry Perl, and if it doesn't, I will advocate that he update it, or at least let me work with him to update it so I can learn how to do it. So in any case, I want to just stress that use these versions, use these URLs. You can get fancy if you want, but if you want to do what I'm showing you here, you need to use these links. Okay.
10 more minutes.
10 more minutes. When were we cutting off speakers? Well, I thought I could just speak for 5 hours. No. Okay. So go to this page. It'll go through one thing. I'm gonna jump over to a virtual machine I have here, which is why I'm in full screen. But I'm going to run this code. So when you install wxPerl in this way, you get a you get access. Oh wait, I don't think WX demo actually comes installed. You have to install. That's why I have this step. Install WX demo. WX demo is a really awesome literal demo of probably most of the things and widgets that you can do in wxPerl, or it shows you what is available in wxPerl. I have it installed and I'll run it here. So let's pretend you've installed the wxdemo.pl. wxPerl demo. That's not it. Oh wait, too many virtual machines. Okay, wxPerl, and I know this is hard to see. wxPerl demo.pl. It takes a minute to, well, not a literal minute, but it takes a few seconds to come up. So all I've done here is follow the steps that I was talking about. Now, one thing to note about wxPerl startup is it does take a few seconds to start up. I'm on a virtual machine. Here we go. So this is very hard to see. I apologize, but this is the pane, and it's got all the different things that WX can support in Perl, and it's really nice because it's got the source code. It's got a source code tab, and it's got a demo tab. Okay, this is the actual demo, and so I've come here and to consult. Okay, how would you do different things? Okay, and so anyway, you can click through. You see it's pulling up these things, buttons, whatnot, different panes, different ways to configure your GUI. And so, Martia Barbon is his name. He is the one that initially created the WX bindings for Perl, and very smart guy. He very prolific guy, at least when he was active with this stuff. So anyway, I wanted to show you that this is a VirtualBox image that I have that's set up to. I wonder if I make this big, if it'll. Can y'all? I think that y'all. Yeah, I can see that on the TV. So maybe what I'll do. Let's see. Okay, well, let me switch back to the Perl guilds here. Okay, the next thing I want to talk quickly about is WX Glade. WX Glade, it's like Glade is the some of y'all may know it's like the GTK based GUI builder. Well, this is WX Glade. It's meant to build a WX GUI like graphically. It's not perfect, but it is really good. It's really more than good enough, and it dumps Perl code. Okay, and so I've created this as part of my workflow using this, at least getting the initial GUI. So you do need to install Python on the Windows machine, which is, this is why one of the reasons I'm using VirtualBox, because I have to install all this stuff. But also I don't really use. You can see I use a Mac. This is a very old Mac I use for my daily work. I don't use Windows on the daily for obvious reasons. I think most of you understand. But in any case, you're going to have to install Python. Now, if somebody wants to write a GUI builder in Perl for wxPerl, then there are actual. I wish I had another hour to talk about like all the interactions I've had with all the old wxPerl people and WX people in the past, because it's been in the last year. It's been very interesting. But in any case, there are some old programs that are they were specifically built to facilitate WX GUI building for Perl. They've become defunct because of the version. Nobody was keeping up with the version of Perl and the version WX. So maintenance and sustainability is key. So anyway, so you install Python here. I think it's Python 3.12 that you really, I think you need to use that version. Oh wait, no. Here I have the link for 3.10, so it must be 3.10. I need to update this. 3.12 may not work. Figuring out the version of Python to work with this was also a pain in the butt. So another reason to avoid Python if you can. But in this case, I couldn't. This is what it looks like. Okay, this is a screenshot of wxGlade running on Windows, but I will pull it up live on the virtual box. A couple of development flow notes. So that gives you the environment to develop WX Perl applications on Windows, and then but now I have some development notes. Okay, I have found, I was trying to find a good editor. I found that using the MSys2 terminal, Vim on there is the best way to actually code if you're used to using Vim. It is a pain in the ever living butt to use, for me at least, to use obviously Notepad. I mean, there's some pretty cool text editors on Windows these days. At least, I mean, even old school like TextEdit is one that I used to use back in the day. But it's not good for the flow. The way that I was developing, so the way that you develop using wxGlade is if you are building your GUI and you generate code, okay, you can, as long as you put your custom code, you can have that file open up in another window. And as long as your source code is outside of some very clearly marked areas of the text file, wxGlade will retain your code, okay, and it will only touch the code that is on the lines or within the bounds where it is setting up the GUI itself. And so it might take you, a couple of tries to figure out how to work with wxGlade while you're on one hand generating the file, the Perl file, and on the other hand having it in a window, an editor, and are updating it live as it's also getting overwritten by this other thing. But again, you'll figure out where you can and cannot write your code so that it doesn't get overwritten. The one thing to also note is this: you have to actually, I think you have to specifically set it to not overwrite. Oh yeah, so this is a WX on wxWidgets. The settings, you can output to Perl, and then so it does support 3.0. I have it set to 3.0. I think that's the default. But this keep user code is not automatically checked. You want to make sure you check it if you're going to be doing kind of the workflow process that I do. And then wxGlade, this is the output path. So it's relative to whatever the directory where your wxGlade project is saved. And so you can obviously put an absolute path in there. And this is just the default name, wxGlade. Okay, let me hurry up here. So creating Windows EXEs, just jumping quickly to this, use par package and or I use par package and app pp autolink, and then wxPerl packager. Okay, this app pp autolink app pp autolink finds all of the shared libraries that you need. Okay, because I was having a problem early on with distributing this application we're about to run, where it wasn't finding SSL libraries. They weren't getting included in the exe that I was providing. And so I finally figured out I was just missing some shared libraries. Okay. And so I will show you a makefile also with what a makefile looks like when you're including these libraries. It's kind of ugly. It's a long, ugly command, but it works. Necessarily long and ugly. So wxPar comes with this wxPerl packager. It's a wrapper around par, okay, and I haven't exactly figured out why it's special to wx, but I use it. I can't say that pp or the par directly wasn't working, but this, I believe it goes and it tries to find wx related shared libraries for you, okay, and so I would recommend you use this, even though I can't tell you at the moment exactly why. It's crafted for WX. Okay, this is a sample WX program. Where's the make file? Okay. So please go through and read this if you're interested. It goes through and talks about the make file and building the exe. One thing to note, this is the original cross-platform GUI programming with wxWidgets by Julian Smart and Kevin Ha and another gentleman. Julian Smart's the guy who invented wxWidgets, and he will answer your emails. And I know this because he's been kind and answered mine when looking for a copy of dialog blocks, which he provided to me. If you email him, he will give you an access key for it. He doesn't charge money for his GUI builder anymore because it's so out of date, but it works. Okay, let me jump over to this. So let me close that window. This is the this window here is the window where I run Vim. It's the MSys2 window. One thing I want to point out here also is I did not like how it was automatically like auto tabbing and doing all this other stuff, and it was like I don't like how Vim is responsive to the mouse. And so these are the settings which I have detailed in the wiki page on what I use for my Vim RC. It allows you just to kind of naturally use Vim like maybe you're used to if you're just like on a, you know, like Vim Lite or something like that. So anyway, this is the code. This I'm using, and again, I apologize for being small. This is the code that is generated by wxBlade. Okay, this here is wxBlade. Okay, this window here, this is the GUI window for the application that I'm building. Okay, and this is the object tree here. This is the object tree for this GUI. Now, this GUI application, it is a client for a freely available JSON file that the National Hurricane Center puts out. An update, it's always available, but unless there's a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico or in the Atlantic, it's not, or the Pacific, East Pacific and Central Pacific, it's not, I guess, our hemisphere. It's not going to be updating on anything. But since we're in an active season now, they are updating it whenever there's a storm. Now, whether there's an entry there or not, I don't know. But we're going to find out shortly. I also collect during hurricane seasons. I have a script that whenever they issue an advisory, a new advisory, whether it's the Atlantic, East Pacific, or Central Pacific, I will collect the updated JSON file, and then I will download some relevant information for me, like the advisory and the history, the actual track history and pressure history of the storm. I will download that and then save that to a GitHub repo. That is an archive. So I maintain and have been for the last few years an archive for each Atlantic hurricane season and Pacific of the advisories as they are put out. So it'll detect, it checks like every 30 seconds, have they put one out, and every time they update it, it'll save it, push it to GitHub. And so this client here is able, I've created it so it can read that archive and then show some information through the JSON. So let me pull up, this is the command window. One thing I do also want to show you is the make file. Okay, this make file is on GitHub, and I go over in the make file how I arrived at creating it here, and it's also documented in the wiki. But basically what you have is, I know, let's see. Well, okay, it'll be available on the wiki, but I mean it's probably worth it's
describe it.
wxPerl. It's a make file wxPerl, and then it includes the executable path that I want to create, and then it lists all the shared libraries that I wanted to link, and at the very end, it's got the Perl script that is actually being compiled or being packaged up. And the end result is that I get an exe, a .exe, with the that you can distribute. And I'll show that you can distribute it here. So on this window, on the left-hand side here that I'm currently expanding, I can run the Perl script. So the Perl script is called nhc explorer.pl.
Also, like they're small, not visible, just that way.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, sorry about that.
You just have to describe everything you're doing, otherwise it's meaningless.
So I'm running a file called, this is the file that wxGlade has put out. So if I can hit generate source, I go over here, you can see that it's, wait, let me show you. Okay, so I'm going to generate source and show you that it'll warn me over here on Vim that it regenerated the source. So I just reloaded it after the source was generated, and all of my changes are retained, just trust me, they are. But it updated all the parts, the sections that it knows it can touch. Now, on the Strawberry Perl terminal right here, I can run the Perl script that it just generated. So it's nhc explorer.pl. That's what I saved it as. Oh, wait, I need to run it with Perl. So I'm running just the wxPerl as a Perl script. And bear with me, it's going to take a second to start up. And then I'm going to run it in this Vim window, which is an MSys2. I will show you that I can't run the Perl script in there because, okay, here it is. If I load active storms, it says please wait. It's going out. There's no active storms. But if I hit load explore archive, it goes out to GitHub and it loads the different years that I have. So I can expand it out. This is a storm in 2024. And I can actually load the JSON file. It populates it in the address bar here. It's copied the URL. And if I go and load this JSON file, it loads up the storms that were in that JSON file at the time. And here you have, this is where you have all your, it's links to like these KMZ files and these zip files with all the data. And so you literally can explore the archive itself. And then there's a sample file that they maintain that it's just for people like me who are creating. I think I killed it. It's just a file like for people like me who are creating things against the JSON file. All right, so I crashed the application, but you saw it working. So I want to show you this. Okay, if I'm in the here, I'm in the MSys window, the one on the right. If I try and run that nhc explorer.pl, I'm going to get an error. It can't locate wxPM because it's not installed in the MSys2 environment. I have to run it from as a Perl script from the Strawberry Perl environment because that's where wxPerl is installed. However, I have in this dist directory, and this is on GitHub. I know you can't see it. I have an nhc-explorer.exe that is all fully self-contained. And I can run that from the MSys2 window because everything's included in it. And it's nhc-explorer.exe. Oh wait, it's a dist nhc-explorer.exe. So what's happening here is what would happen if you say you went to the GitHub repo for this project, you downloaded the exe file that I provide, you can run it from your Windows machine. Now you may want, hopefully you trust me, but if you don't, you can run it on a virtual machine or in some kind of protected environment. But what it does is it is basically unzipping everything that's in this PAR archive, and then it's running it with the Perl executable or the Perl library and all the other required libraries. So this window here is running from the exe, the self-contained exe. And let me just show that it'll work as before. And here you can get, so you can use HTTP Tiny. It uses SSL properly. And here I can load up the detailed JSON file. So this is just demonstrating that if you follow all the steps that are on the wiki page, and please contact me if you're curious or have questions. That you can create an exe on Windows that you can also send to people. And the great part about this for me is that this gives you whatever Strawberry Perl can do. You can create a native Windows GUI to take advantage of that capability. Now, the trickiest part is figuring out all the different shared libraries you have to include in the wxPerl command, but that's probably where I can assist you, because it's a process. It's not super quick, but I've at least figured out how to get there. And hopefully by this time next year, I'll have a way to actually easily, or at least straightforwardly, create installation like an MSI or something like that. I have looked into it, and I do understand generally the process, but you got to create like XML files and all these meta files, and I haven't even tried to test on many different versions of Windows. And so anyway, work in progress, but still progress nonetheless. Anyway, thank you. Sorry for going over, and I'll unshare.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Brett Estrade. Let's go ahead and
give a round of applause for Brett. Thank you. Very interesting Perl in Windows. All right. So